This is a graphic. I saw it on Twitter from Len Kiefer, and I'm not sure who this is attributed to. I think it's sourced on the graphic itself. This is nuts. It looks at initial jobless claims numbers. These are the numbers that people initially, basically put in. I think they do it through survey and through people who request unemployment. But watch this graphic. This is going to be disturbing to you. And it's going to get worse than this, but this is pretty dramatic in terms of like where we are. And again, I think like this has happened so quickly, except for those people who are out of work and who have friends out of work and are beginning to feel this anxiety. I think we just haven't felt it yet. But here, take a look at this. It's an animated graphic through the decades of initial jobless claims. 1990, we had a blip. We had a blip in 1987. There's 2008. And then it just goes straight up like a rocket. It goes straight up like a rocket. And that is seasonally adjusted too, folks. The last big one we had was, I think it was 400,000 more or less. Seasonally adjusted, it would have been 900,000. So that's there in this graphic. And it's pretty stunning. Maybe it was 700,000 was that seasonally adjusted. Look at that. We have another one that is, this is percent of the labor force. One is just sort of like, not a function of how many people are actually working, but this one is a percentage of the labor force. This one's even more dramatic. And here it is. Just gives you a sense of what percentage of the labor force we're talking about. Biggest one day jump was a little more than 0.5% of the labor force. And this one goes way up there to still not stopping. 4% of the labor force in 2 weeks. And that's, it's very scary. And all those people, not all, but the vast majority of them are now, well, they're all insecure about their health insurance. The vast majority of them are going to have to find a new solution. It's just a question of like what the timing is going to be for that new solution. So there it is. Here is Donald Trump. More, we played clips earlier that show what the administration is doing is really, it's malfeasance. It is not just incompetence. It is a purposeful decision to allow people to make money off of this tragedy at the expense of lives. There's no other way to put it. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. Here is an example of Donald Trump seeing this. And the reason why they're able to do that on that end is because on the other end, they do not care. They just do not care about this in terms of like the cost to people. And I don't even think that Trump cares about it in terms of the cost to people from an economic perspective, except for how it impacts his electability. Case in point, here is Donald Trump at the White House press room. This is from yesterday.
Their 401k, everything is perfect. Then all of a sudden they go from that to having no job in one day. They never even thought of it. And then you see 6 million people unemployed. Unemployment numbers get released and you see 6 million people. And it's an artificial closing. It's not like we have a massive recession or worse. It's artificial because we turned it off. Think of what we're doing. We're saying don't go to work and we'll pay you. Everything's the opposite. It was always go to work and make a lot of money and do well, and the American dream. Because of a hidden enemy, we're saying, don't go to work and we're going to pay you. Look at the money, $2 trillion. And we will probably do more. I think infrastructure would be a fantastic thing to do. You want to get the restaurants back, you give deductibility. You understand what that is? You give deductibility for businesses where they go and they use the restaurants. The restaurants will be bigger and better than they were before.
Well, first off, what occurs to me is this notion that this is artificial. It is unique, but it's not artificial. The pain that everyone is getting, like the whole economy is artificial. It's all an artifice. The recession is real. People are going to feel real pain. It's going to exist for a long time. He wants it. He's basically saying, like, you can't count this against me. This can't be the way that I lose the election. It's artificial. It's fake. It's not real. It's not my fault. That's all he cares about. Yeah, it's all he cares about. It's all he cares about. It is. I'm not surprised, but I'm also surprised because it is sort of amazing to just nothing will shake him from his own fate or how he perceives it. It is really impressive in that respect. We reported up front. Oh, yeah, I want to just do one thing on the comfort. And I think I mentioned this briefly in passing at one point, probably back around the time that I got this email, which was about 12 days ago. But the sender did not want me to use their email, their name. And, we get a lot of emails from people, and I wasn't 100% sure about it. So I say it in passing because I don't know. And I didn't have the means in which to assess the credibility of this. But it now, in hindsight, seems very credible. The 1,000 bed Comfort. This is the Naval Medical Hospital ship. It docks in New York a couple of days ago. It's got 1,000 beds. There's a 1,200 member crew. As of yesterday, only 20 patients had been transferred to the ship. Another naval hospital, the USNS Mercy, docked in LA, had a total of 15 patients. Michael Dowling, the head of Northwell Health, New York's largest hospital, says, if I'm blunt about it, it's a joke. Everyone can say thank you for putting these things in places, opening up these cavernous halls, but we have a crisis here. Supposedly, it's a tangle of military protocols and bureaucratic hurdles have prevented the Comfort from accepting many patients at all. It has strict rules preventing people infected with the virus on board. And the reason for that comes from this email that I received from a listener whose name they would prefer not be used. I was assigned as an Air Force National Guardsman to the Comfort during Operation Enduring Freedom. It was a mission for some Central and South American countries during the younger Bush administration. The ship has a centralized air circulation system for all berthing. Those are the sleeping areas. Working areas, laundry, cooking, and engine room, water processing, and patient care areas. There are 2 isolation rooms with their own positive air pressure to outside air. I did not see any windows in any of these areas to aid the fresh air circulation. While this new virus isn't transmitted through airborne contact, it has an incredible air hang time. It is my opinion these ships are being deployed as a visual aid, some measure of symbolic comfort. The only functions they could serve without major modification to air filtration is a temporary home for personnel who are not infected, or a location for emergency services to direct care and surgeries for patients who have no COVID-19 infection and no infected contacts. Directing emergencies to a ship brings its own complications and durations of travel. During the deployment, a couple of patients were able to get by the on-land screening procedures for TB, not that it was their intent to infect the whole ship, but their presence before being moved into the isolation rooms put everyone on board at risk. I'm not aware of any positive tests resulting from this incident, but I wasn't high up on the food chain. It's fairly standard procedure within the military to receive testing for TB 6 months prior to a deployment, 6 months after, and annually. In other words, you can't bring COVID-19 patients onto that ship. You can't bring people onto that ship who have other ailments that can't be dealt with in most of the hospitals, because most of the hospitals are dealing almost exclusively with COVID-19 patients, unless you can test them. We do not have any tests. We don't have tests. So these ships are just there. And they can't take patients on board until we have tests. And then what you would do is somebody comes into the ER for something other than COVID-19, quick test, we're sending you to the Comfort. You need a urgent medical procedure, we give you a quick test. We send you to the Comfort. There are no quick tests. There are no tests. This is a massive failure by our federal government. It's just the end of the story. I mean, that's the beginning and end of it. They're not responsible for coronavirus, although another story of them firing a team in China who were two months before the novel coronavirus is thought to have begun its deadly advance in Wuhan, China. The Trump administration ended a $200 million, a drop in the bucket, pandemic early warning program aimed at training scientists in China and other countries to detect and respond to such a threat. Unbelievable. They are effing this up in just about every single possible way that you could. Almost every single possible way that you could.